It all starts with a seed planted, fertilized and watered by unnecessary bloodshed, brutalized bodies living in brutal conditions, when there is nothing left to lose but everything to gain, when the system squeezes everything out of you day in and day out, takes from you all that you work for, takes from you all that you love, for no other reason than to satisfy its power. It is in that last drop of all you have to give that the spark will ignite everything, and then it all burns down to the ground. When the people are no longer living in a life in which they are subdued with subtle comforts, when they are pushed too far, stretched too thin, persecuted to no ends, tormented with scenes of injustice that suddenly haunts their every dream and shadows their every waking move. When the land of their forefathers is under threat, when their memories lay buried, when their ancestors lay buried, where the human sacrifice to remain in existence for the sake of generations to come is stronger than the fear of dying. It will all start with a call, first subtle and quiet, whispered in between walls of clandestine meetings where thoughts and ideas will permeate conversations. The seed has now started to sprout, fertilized and watered by the yearning for change. We are, after all, creatures of evolution, never staying stagnant, never staying silent. The message will spread like wildfire. Change is coming. It's just on the horizon if you are willing to fight and take hold of a future bright enough to dispel the darkness of the present day. They will ride at dawn or dusk, whichever to catch the enemy surprised. They will be surprised regardless, not knowing where this determined spirit has come from. Little do they know that the seed that sprouted has now grown roots, and they are spreading. Across the lands, our cries for freedom, for justice are connected. And for a moment, when the majority stops fighting each other, we become a united force. Until what was once a seed planted grows to become jungle, hiding guerrilla fighters and clandestine meetings become more than just places to whisper ideas, but rather a space where strangers become synchronized in strategy. Something is coming, and it is bigger than all of us. It shifts the tectonic plates of our realities until we can no longer stand still in our subjugation. The tremors of change are too strong, and they call us with conviction. Convince us that another life is calling, and so we go to war against a system that is set up to crush us, but the masses are too strong. The gains are greater than the losses. The promise of what is on the other side are too compelling for us to stay stuck in the mud. And so we march on with banners, with posters, with weapons, with our bodies, with our voices, with our spirits yearning for freedom. The fire is no longer containable. The seed has grown into forest. The ideas are far beyond our wildest imaginations, and they may not even manifest within our lifetimes, but they will manifest. And when the oppressors finally fall, be that in 100, or 1,000 years, those of us who have been stripped from our land, stripped of our dignity, stripped of a reason worth living, we will be vindicated. Even if we are ancestors, we will smile down on future generations living our wildest dreams. Because we decided not to revel in the status quo, but to shift it altogether. And with the strength of thousands, we marched, we fought, we shouted, "Viva la revolución! Long live the revolution." But whose revolution is more worthy? Whose life is more important to document, to remember, entrenched in our memories, written in the history books we are allowed to study? What color are the revolutions you have been allowed to learn about? When the winds of change come, who are the changes for, and which way do they blow? Which stories get swept up in the wind tunnels, get lost in the hurricanes? Which stories do we cheer for, and which stories do the rest of us work hard to dig up, just to find a piece of ourselves in history's textbooks? When does change move from revolution to rioting and looting? When does the definition shift? Is it in the color of bodies melanated into darker hues? When our struggles reflected in the art splashed across large institutions, curated by the descendants of those who wish to erase us, erase our stories of struggle, to minimize them as footnotes on pages, when it is our fights that have made huge dents, that have shifted history? When is it time for a change? Who decides? When do the change makers demand complacency to stay in their newly fought comforts, afforded to them on the backs of unrecognized, unlegitimized struggles? As some revolutions are deemed noble, while others are savage. We look for our heroes to be etched in stone, for those whose bravery began the conquest for freedom, for change, only to be met by statues of those who are hero to some, oppressors to the rest of us. We tell stories of injustices with no closure, with no support for the PTSD being passed down from generation to generation, just pictures, just stories, just vivid imagination playing on memory we wish to push back but bring up over and over again. It burns our throats, but we continue to retell them, to remind us that we too sacrificed for the greater good, for the change we sought to see in this world, for the freedom of people in every color. Revolutions are the dreams of artists, painting new worlds of possibilities, springing forth from those who dare to dream until the impossible becomes reality. Revolutions give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, future to the ones who weren't even sure there was even a future worth living for, let alone worth fighting for, worth dying for. Revolution occupies the space that shifts power, balances that shifts mindsets, that shifts the energies in this world, to ensure that oppressive systems cannot crush the people into oblivion, into a world not worth living. And within revolution, within that new energy, so many things are created, so much art, so much life. What is the spark? What is the catalyst for change? Is it in an assassination? Is it in the veins who have had enough? Is it the weight of a whip feeling too heavy for the last time, the cloud of injustice hanging over one's head, darkening the path, the cries of children unjustly murdered, the end of tyranny that causes agony in the lives of the many to retain the power of a few? Revolution screams equality, liberty, fraternity. But what if you do not see me as your brother or sister? Is my freedom requiring of you seeing me as worthy? Are you of the enlightened who know what is best for me and present me with an offer that only you stand to gain from? Am I even really included in your thoughts of equality, liberty, freedom, life, liberty, and the dream? What if our dreams collide, clash? What if me giving up my dream is the requirement for you to live yours? What if you didn't want to risk it? What if your revolution doesn't even consider me in the first place? Is it still an upset of power, or just a changing of the hands of power between bodies that are not colored into submission, into savage, into unworthiness of another thought? And so what was once a call for freedom becomes a call for treason. Viva la revolución! Long live the revolution. But whose revolution is more worthy? Whose life is more important to document, to remember? Entrenched in our memories, written in the history books we are allowed to study, what color are the revolutions you have been allowed to learn about? And when the winds of change come, who are the changes for? Which way do they blow? Which stories get swept up in the wind tunnels, get lost in the hurricanes? Which stories do we cheer for, and which stories do the rest of us work hard to dig up, just to find a piece of ourselves in history's textbook?